Hello everybody, welcome to the Tube, and these are our headlines for tonight's show. Is Apple really worth $700 billion? Which Israeli startup gets motion control right? What is Sony planning for its smartwatch? How will our browsers look like in virtual reality? And who's stronger, Batman or Darth Vader? We'll answer all this and more right now. Big news for the lovers of the web's favorite camera. GoPro has become the go-to camera for extreme videos, but now they want to take it to the next level. GoPro is developing its own line of consumer drones to expand from its core businesses of making wearable video cameras popular with surfers and other sports enthusiasts, according to a report by the Wall Street Journal. GoPro is apparently aiming to price its consumer camera drones between $500 and $1,000, an aggressive range that could immediately shake up the consumer drone market. Fly away, GoPro! Fly away. The more smart appliances we add to our house, the more remote controls we'll have, and this is something that needs to be changed. Israeli startup iSight aims to fix all of that. Rather than having you whip out your phone every time you need to switch something on or off, the company's new OneQ device is designed to recognize gestures, allowing you to control all devices, like Tom Cruise in Minority Report. OneQ supports infrared control devices like TVs, Blu-ray players, AV receivers, and even certain gaming consoles. Similar to a universal remote, it can learn to control just about any IR control device in existence. Watch it in awe.
Oh, I'm just turning on my TV. Actually, I'm turning on my television, my cable box, and my stereo receiver all at the same time. And no, I don't have a state-of-the-art, fancy TV that's so smart it could tell me what I had for breakfast last Tuesday. What I do have is OneQ, an easy-to-use, gesture-controlled device that ties your whole room together without a single cable. Take a look at my coffee table. What do you see? Nothing. When I want to change channels, all I gotta do is this. Switch between devices, this. Watch my favorite streaming series, this. I can even use OneQ to adjust the temperature in the room.
It's kind of chilly in here, dude.
Yeah, well, maybe it's time to put a shirt on, Dave.
I don't get it. I do this in my house all the time. It will just change things all the time and I'll go mad. But I'm sure they have a solution for that. During the past week, we had a lot to say about Uber. The taxi service is one of the most controversial companies in the tech world, but now they can be controversial and rich. Uber investors are betting the 5-year-old car booking app is more valuable than Twitter or even Hertz. The startup is close to raising a round of financing that would value it between $35 to $40 billion. The news came just after Apple reached its biggest valuation estimate ever. Apple's market cap passed $700 billion shortly after trading opened Tuesday morning. So are we all going crazy, or are these companies worth more than some countries? Let's talk about it with Daniel Roth, i24 economy correspondent. He's awesome, and he's here. Good evening.
How's it going?
I'm all right. Let's talk about the economy of tech companies, okay? How does a small company, such as Uber, get $40 billion valuation?
The short answer is basically that things are worth as much as people are willing to pay for them. This is the simple answer. This is the way the economy works. This is the way capitalism works. So people have this idea of Uber that Uber has built, and they're building this kind of Uber bubble that tells you, and I call it a bubble for two reasons. One, because it encompasses the company and it gives the company an image that outsiders looking in see, and they think, oh, that's worth $40 billion. The other reason I call it a bubble is because Uber, as you've been reporting all week, as people around the world have been noticing, is somewhat shaky. It's somewhat of an empty shell. It's a dangerous, dangerous bet to call this a $40 billion company in brief.
But people put their money on it, aiming to make more money off it? How does it work? Are they going to lose all this money? They might.
Maybe, maybe not. The question is, can Uber survive? Can Uber take on the market of really what it is at the end of the day? It's an app. It's a connector for drivers and passengers. And that's what they call themselves even. They're simply an app. They don't employ people. They don't want to employ people because then they'd have to follow labor laws. This is one of the big disputes. They don't follow labor laws in most of the places where they operate. Here in Israel, for example, they're not allowed to have private cars. They only work through taxis. But basically, that's the hope. If they can beat the other people in the market, then yeah, you can make more money off them. Even if they're not doing something new, something as substantial as, say, a wheat mill or an Apple. This is wheat mill. I mean, literally a wheat mill. That's not the name of the coolest new app. But that's the name of the game. If they can beat out the competition, become the leader, which arguably they are, then people can make money off them.
Well, it sounds like random amounts of money. You know, Apple, $700 billion, and you know, it's a huge successful company, but it sells iPads.
Yeah, so this is a big secret in the capitalist economy. It is, to some extent, random. It's a question of confidence. The entire thing is built on how much you can make your company seem worth and how much will people with money agree your company is worth. So, yeah, it can seem random, and that's partly because it's all a confidence game. There's another term for that. A con game, but it's not exactly. You're building confidence in an idea, and Apple has built an enormous amount of confidence. They go beyond confidence. They go to culture. They build hardware. They build software, and they build people's kind of identities at this point. People identify as Apple people. So all of that together makes them an almost too big to fail tech company.
So let's say it is worth $700 billion. What can it do as a company? Can it buy a country?
Theoretically, I guess so, if there were a country for sale that wanted to be bought by Apple. But the money it's not all there. That's the thing. It's the idea of Apple is worth. It's not that Tim Cook is sitting in his office swimming like Scrooge McDuck in a pile of money. This is the idea of Apple is worth the idea of $700 billion. That's the world and that's the economy we live in, where this is what matters, though. It tells us how awesome Apple is. It's the answer to that is really awesome. 700 billion units awesome. If we start to take away kind of the shell and the complicated terminology, you start to get a real sense that we're talking about ideas here.
Well, because, you know, I'm thinking two thoughts. One is that it can only go higher and higher and higher, because why not? You know, it's 700 now, it can be $2,000 billion. And on the other hand, we talk about bubbles here a lot. When you're here, you talk about the economic bubble, and I'm just wondering, aren't bubbles supposed to explode? Well, does it happen?
This is another side of the capitalist economic game, is that capitalism is built on this idea of infinite growth, that things grow and grow and grow. Countries are rated on GDP, so their growth every year. But the truth is that we live on a finite planet in a finite universe. So just speaking about physics, it's impossible for economies to grow infinitely. It's impossible for companies to grow infinitely. And it's impossible for stocks to grow infinitely. So eventually, yes, all things come to an end. All bubbles burst. All companies slow down or reversing.
Slow down, yeah, but burst, disappear, go bankrupt. I mean,
it's possible.
But it doesn't really happen to big companies.
Well, so the real question here is the difference between Apple and Uber is that Apple has a strong foundation of, like I said, hardware and software and a culture where people identify as Apple people. So that means that whatever bubble they've built is a much thicker, sturdier space. Uber is built on what they call disruption, which is really disruption of regulations, which is really disruption disruption of people's privacy and these kinds of things, these reports coming out over the last week or so, they don't have a very sturdy bubble. They have a very empty bubble, which means that if their bubble were to burst, you wouldn't see, more than likely, you wouldn't see that they shrink. You would see that they disappear and someone else would take over.
Interesting. Thank you very much, Daniel Roth.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's move on. Sony recently released its third smartwatch in, well, many years, and the company shows no signs of stopping. Sources tell Bloomberg that Sony is planning another smartwatch for 2015, but this one will be different from prior models, using a low-power e-paper screen. Sony is expected to put a twist on its next watch, where the entire surface area of the device, including the band used for customized information. Bloomberg sources say the watch will emphasize style instead of adding a wide range of features, which is what smartwatches so desperately need, but I still don't want a smartwatch. Sorry, not for me. If you feel like you've had it with ordinary browsing and looking at websites and pictures and, well, stuff, well, maybe you need to go somewhere else, somewhere like the virtual reality world. A small startup called InSpace is attempting to revamp the user experience of conventional interfaces by implementing a system that gives the perception of browsing and moving around in 3D. It's sort of like turning all your computer's elements into a 3D game. With the advancing VR technology, it makes sense to start and think about user interface for a virtual environment. InSpace's ambition, well, it's extremely high, considering the fact that people are still barely getting used to touch screens instead of keyboards, but we like people who dream. And now for the geekiest thing we saw this week, Mashimina web channel made a video with both Darth Vader and Batman fighting each other. You can now die from a geekasm.
You've made a mistake coming here.
Release Superman. Why you still can.
You do not know the power of the dark side.
I'll take my science over your magic any day. Let's see how well you breathe now.
The Force will sustain me long enough.
Exactly. Better focused on you than me.
You underestimated me.
I underestimate nothing.
You cannot win.
Okay, we're sorry. This is the geekiest thing we saw this week. Rudolph the reindeer meets the Predator. Geeks.
We are a rescue team, not assassins. Now, what do we gotta do?
In a part of the world where there are no rules.
We pick up their trailer at the chopper, run them down, grab those hostages before anybody knows we were there. What do you mean we?
Deep in the jungle, where nothing that lives is safe. You lose it here, you're in a world of hurt.
Showtime, kid. Knock, knock.
An elite rescue squad
You're bleeding, man.
I ain't got time to bleed.
is being led by the ultimate warrior.
We need the best. That's why you're here.
But now,
What's got Billy so spooked?
there's something out there waiting for us. And it ain't no man. They're up against the ultimate enemy.
Holy Mother of God.
Nothing like it has ever been on Earth before.
Okay. This is the geekiest thing we saw this week. Someone sent a lamb chop into space. Really.
that meat and no potatoes just ain't right, like green tomatoes. Yeah, I'm waiting.
And that's it. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be here throughout the weekend with the Tube's Weekend Edition, and back on Monday with a regular show. Log on to our Twitter and our Tumblr. It's thetube24. And always remember, don't wait for the perfect moment. Take the moment and make it perfect. Goodbye.